It's how elections are won in Wisconsin. If you're a Democrat, you need to run up the score in Milwaukee and Madison. If you're a Republican, you need big numbers in the so-called WOW counties, Waukesha, Ozaukee, and Washington. But Donald Trump has been underperforming in those deep red counties, at least so far. Looking at numbers from the most recent Marquette Law School poll, Trump leads Clinton in the WOW counties by just 2 points, 39 to 37%. Compare that to the same time 4 years ago, when challenger Mitt Romney led President Obama in the WOW counties 65 to 29. Why is Trump lagging in these Republican strongholds, and can he turn it around before Election Day? We're asking Van Mobley, the Thiensville Village president and Trump supporter from Ozaukee County. Van Mobley, it's good to have you back on the program.
Mike, thank you for having me.
You remain confident. You think he can win Wisconsin, he can win nationally. Nothing has occurred that would change your view of that.
No, I'm actually becoming more confident every day as we move into the as we move towards Election Day. I'm a historian, you know, and one of the things this reminds me of is the Truman versus Dewey campaign. But I think that the man of the people is Donald Trump, as Truman was back then, and I think Mr. Trump's going to pull it through.
Give me your take on what's happened in the WOW counties, as we refer to them. He has been in the polls underperforming there. He's been doing really well in places like the Green Bay market, but not so much in Waukesha, Ozaukee, and Washington County. Why is that?
Well, I think, you know, the first choice, realistically, was the people, they chose Cruz in these counties, and they didn't get their first choice. But I think as it narrows down on, they see Hillary really is an unacceptable candidate for a conservative. And Trump, if you think about it, is actually a very good candidate. He has strength and energy, which he's displayed. That's a virtue that conservative Republican voters appreciate. He has an executive experience. Now, he's been in business a long time. That means he has some losses, but he has wins too. And he's got more wins than losses. And anybody in business knows that you're going to have that. And he showed it over time. And, you know, he can absorb a tremendous amount of incoming fire and still keep battling. You need that as a president. He has strong virtues. He's a good candidate. And I think that as they think about it, as we move towards Election Day, they're going to come home.
How badly hurt has he been by the fact that a number of people in talk radio here have not supported him? Some prominent columnists, strategists, Republicans have not supported him. How badly has that hurt him in the WOW counties?
That has hurt him. I mean, there are establishment figures that have come out against him. But I got to tell you, I think that actually he's going to do very well in southeastern Wisconsin. And part of the reason is because everybody, whether they're a Republican or a Democrat, an independent, African American, white person, Hispanic, they're going to kind of enjoy giving a poke to, for example, Charlie Sykes the day after Trump is elected. Listening to Charlie Sykes on the radio will be very funny, I think. So we're going to look forward to that. I think everybody can rally around that.
Do you think the fact that Donald Trump and Paul Ryan have had this sort of strange relationship where Ryan is technically still supporting Trump, but has not campaigned with him, has not defended him on a number of different issues, has the fact that Trump has fired back at Ryan and made it pretty personal, has that hurt him with voters in southeastern Wisconsin?
I don't think so. I think that they know that both Ryan and Trump are strong figures, and they do what they see to be in the interest. But I will say this, both Ryan and Trump are still working together, and they'll work together after Trump becomes president. And but they won't always agree, and the voters have seen that. They don't expect them to always agree.
Talk about your county, Ozaukee County, early voting there. You've said the numbers actually, you're encouraged by what you've seen so far in early voting.
High turnout. I had breakfast this morning with the town of Cedarburg supervisor. He said they were up at about 25% turnout. We've had high turnout in Thiensville as well. So I'm encouraged by that. Yes, I think that we're going to get a high turnout. I think we'll get a high turnout everywhere. And I think Donald Trump's message appeals to everyone in southeastern Wisconsin, not just the people in the WOW counties.
I have to have you address the talk that he's made a part of his campaign, and this is about the rigged elections. Do you think that has any impact on people going to the polls? Are there some Republicans, for instance, who may stay home saying, you know, he says the election's rigged. Why am I going to invest any time or effort in this?
No, I think that the Republican voters are going to go to the polls and vote for Donald Trump. I think that just gins them up more.
So what, between now and Election Day, what do you think is key in terms of the Trump campaign and winning Wisconsin?
I think as we focus on the issues, I think that the issues he stands for are the winning issues. trade deals that work for the people in this state and sort of establishing a tax code with some tax cuts, but a tax structure that actually works. I mean, the people in this state are tired of our jobs going overseas. And we've seen it with Johnson Controls, for example, lately. That's a direct result of the way we have our tax code established. Trump is the only candidate who's going to address that and fix that. I think people like that. I think people like his he's strong on defense, but at the same time, he's not eager to get involved in all kinds of wars. Hillary Clinton still hasn't learned the folly of toppling dictators. She still wants to do it in the Middle East, and the people in this state are tired of it. So, and that appeals to Bernie voters and your Republican conservative voters. He's very strong on those. And Obamacare is a disaster, which is beginning to bite as well. And as that bites here, and in a state like Minnesota and Michigan and Pennsylvania, and people see what a disaster Obamacare is, they know that Trump is the one to fix it.
Van Mobley is the village president in Thiensville. He's been a strong Donald Trump supporter for quite a while now. We appreciate you being on the program. Thanks very much for being with us. Now we want to know what you think. The election is just 10 days away. Who do you plan on voting for? You can tell us by liking and sharing Upfront on Facebook. Coming up next, hundreds of thousands of Wisconsin residents have voted early. What's the benefit of that for campaigns? I'll be asking when Upfront continues.